All right, guys. Hey, so as promised, this is the most of the OpenSOC team coming together after DEFCON 26 to talk about OpenSOC. For those of you that were lucky enough to make it to the new Blue Team Village this year, it was a huge success. We'll talk about more of that in a minute. But specifically, what we're here to talk about is our OpenSOC network defense simulation, essentially the Blue CTF that a lot of you were able to see at DEFCON this year. That was a huge undertaking by a team of awesome folks that you're about to hear from in a minute, and we had a lot of fun doing it. A little bit about the project for anybody that wasn't at DEFCON. You can read about it at opensoc.io. It's essentially a fully virtualized enterprise environment with all the trimmings that you'd expect to see, your corporate network. And what we've done is we've introduced several awesome open source projects that are very effective at threat hunting, continuous monitoring, looking for adversarial activity or anomalous activity inside of an enterprise network. And I think one of the reasons that all of us come together and dump so much time and resources into this is because, one, we're all practitioners and we love what we do, but two, we're all super big fans of these open source projects and kind of what they stand for and the awesome folks and teams that develop them. So it's kind of a combination of things that makes us really excited to bring this thing to you guys. So without further ado, I'm going to pass off to Matt to talk a little bit more about it.
Hey, thanks, Eric. And I'm just going to echo that sentiment to everyone who came out and joined us at DEFCON. It was absolutely fantastic to have everyone there. And, to Eric's point about utilizing open source tools to go through threat hunting, to take on some digital forensic incident response challenges, to just watch everyone walk through that was a completely awesome experience. Pardon my background. I'm actually in a hotel right now, so it's very, very obvious that I am not at home, or else I'd have a bad leap background like everyone else does. But one of the coolest things is I'm actually at an event this week, and I've had people who I didn't get a chance to see 2 weeks ago, but I get a chance to see now come up and be like, we had a chance to play, and we really enjoyed a lot of the tools and getting exposure to it. And I think that's really like the quintessential thing that we want to make sure everyone who gets experience with OpenSOC gets. Is we want you to get experience with these tools and find out that, yes, you can threat hunt and you can log manage and you can do all sorts of host detection and host hunting with free open source tools, and it's really, really easy to achieve. But I don't want to talk too much because there's a super awesome team here that needs an introduction as well. So Eriscon talked. My name is Matt. I'm going to let Whitney introduce herself really quick, and then we're going to continue to go through the rest of the team that's joined us.
Hi, I'm Whitney Champion. So I was one of the architects for OpenSOC. Eric and I kind of tag teamed this to bring it to DEFCON this year. It was a little different than most of the events that we've been used to running with OpenSOC. It was definitely one of our biggest, so it was a challenge for sure, but it was a fun challenge. Josh, you want to kick off Blue Team?
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm Josh. If you were there at DEFCON at this event, I probably talked your face off. I was there helping people out. I've done a lot of different things at different events, but this time around I was there helping people get set up and also giving some guidance whenever people were stuck. And I was really face-to-face with you. And I was really glad to meet a lot of you guys. Blue Team Village as a whole was a massive success. I was really surprised there was a line for the new village to open. It was pretty awesome. We hit, fire code capacity like immediately, and we had all the chairs and tables the hotel would bring to us. Because people couldn't get in, me and Aaron actually went outside and set up, we commandeered a table and set up outside to help people get signed up since you couldn't come in yet. We had people playing out in the hallway. We saw people over at Caesars playing in hallways at other villages. It was a massive success. And if you've seen the tweet on Recon InfoSec, you see, we had 379 signups, 271 active players, 115 teams that actually had points on the board, and only one team completed all the challenges. But what was really cool is we got to see a lot of people make friends and form teams, of strangers, and it was really, really cool. I'll let you guys talk about some of the architecture behind this thing.
Yeah, so I'm going to jump in really quick and just echo a lot of what Josh is saying. Okay, so let's just be clear about something. And this is all of us at OpenSOC just being completely wowed by everyone who was there. So this is going to start out with a massive thank you to everyone who attended. no joke, Blue Team Village was in a room in the Flamingo, and we had limited capacity. And y'all coming to sign up for OpenSOC filled that capacity. And therefore, we had to, as Josh mentioned, come out to the hallway and everything. So this is just another chance for us to be super happy about the response, and thank everyone for coming out and really like making the goons work really hard to filter people in and out of the room was an awesome thing to do. Like, we were responsible for goons running around. Goons, we love you to death. Thank you so much for everything you do. But we're happy that we had a lot of people come out. Before we get into architecture, my apologies. I wanted to make sure we gave Aaron and Megan a chance to introduce themselves to the group as well. So Megan, I'm going to hand it to you first. And Megan, you're on mute.
Thanks, Eric. Hi, I'm Megan. I am kind of a wherever I can help person on the team. At the event, I was monitoring and loading up questions into the scoreboard. I was helping people who came up, getting people signed up, basically anything that needed to be done. And it was definitely a lot different of an experience than we've had at some of the smaller cons we attended. So it was great to be a part of it.
And Aaron,
yeah,
over to
sure
you.
Thing. So my name is Aaron Soto. I've been kind of along on this ride for a while now. We've done several of these at various B-Sides events, but it was nothing like being at DEF CON. And so having been at DEF CON before, it's a whole different dynamic to bring something to the event and to actually be part of hosting the Blue Team Village for the first year. And bringing this incredible event was quite an opportunity. For me, I was speaking to a lot of participants out there, so you might have seen my face. Apologies because I was, exhausted and running around the whole time for sure. Josh and I were getting folks signed up, getting people connected to the infrastructure we'll talk about in a little bit, walking through challenges, and just kind of giving you an idea of what's going on. And also, I had the privilege of working on some of our scenario development, some of which Matt and I will talk about in a little bit as well. So I got a full picture, and I have to say that everyone on the team kind of brings their own skill set, and it's a really fun experience to be a part of. So yeah, super thrilled to have been part of it.
And before we hop into the discussion about infrastructure, because we had a lot of folks who attended and wanted to know, like, wait, how did you build this up? How did you prop it up? And I know Eric and Whitney have some really good insight into that. But before we do that, I just want to give a shout out. Some of you may be wondering where the rest of the team may be. We had a couple folks who unfortunately were unable to join us. So a huge shout out to Kyle, Jason, Clint, some of the other folks who helped put some of the scenarios together, helped us get ready for this event. You are here with us in spirit, just not verbally, which may be a blessing and a smart decision. So in any event, I'm going to hand it over to Eric and Whitney to talk to us a little about the architecture. For anyone who was at the event and kind of wanted to get an understanding of what the back end of this looked like, we're not going to give away all the secrets because, we got to keep some Easter eggs up our sleeves. But for those of you who are interested in kind of how we put it together, I know we had a lot of attendees curious about our access methods, why we did what we did. We want to make sure you have an understanding of how we structured that, and no better people to talk about it than the folks who helped orchestrate it. So Eric, Whitney, over to you.
Yeah, awesome. Hey, thanks, Matt. OpenSOC is a lot of moving parts, quite a few more than what most participants actually see, and that's the way it ought to be, right? We try to abstract away as much of it as we can to make sure that participants can dive in and just go straight towards threat hunting. And but to shine some light real quick at a high level on some of the projects that we're using in the environment. These are best in breed open source projects for digital forensics, incident response, and then just overall ops, right? Just you can be troubleshooting a web server or looking for APT in the network, same tools, right? So we're huge fans of WZA, which is essentially a front end for OSSEC, an open source HIDS component. Collide, I can't speak highly enough about Collide, which is the front end for OS Query. We've got Snort, Suricata, and essentially running inside OpenSense, pfSense. And all of it is all really kind of feeding into the heart of it, which is Graylog. So we're huge fans of Graylog. Those of you that have played the game definitely know that. And all of these things come together to give you all of the capabilities that you need to hunt inside of the environment. Now, there was one really unique thing that we did for DEF CON this year that we've never done at a previous event. OpenSOC has existed in a few different forms for almost 2 years now. And it's been evolving slowly over time, but it radically evolved for DEF CON just due to the sheer size of the network and how many participants we were forecasting. We knew that we were going to have to develop a method to allow participants to connect to the environment securely on an otherwise insecure network. But we also wanted to make sure that people could play the game from anywhere in the conference, because we know that DEF CON has been spread across multiple casinos for years now, and so we knew that if we confine folks to the same one area, that we'd have a very limited number of people that were able to play. So I actually introduced the idea of using zero tier as essentially a software-defined LAN that we can very strictly control who can join the network. We can kick off anybody that wants to be a pain. But also we can apply pretty strict ACLs to make sure that clients can't attack each other, anything like that, and that everyone could simply, from anywhere with an internet connection, they could reach our systems and play the game. And we weren't really sure how it was going to go. We've never used it in this way before. Zero tier ended up being phenomenal. We had people like Josh mentioned. We all took a walk one night and went over to Caesars. And I think we were walking through the IoT village, and boom, there's people sitting there playing OpenSOC. I mean, we were just blown away, because that's got to be at least 3/4 of a mile away from where all of our equipment was. So, really cool, and that was a really cool accomplishment for us. But I'll go ahead and pass over to Whitney, who's really a lot of the brains and the heavy lifting behind building this environment and keeping it stable while 300 people are playing in it. Go ahead, Whitney.
So Eric mentioned that this time around we decided to use zero tier, which is something that we had not done in previous events. Previously, we had everybody hop onto the WAP and join the VPN, and that was that. So this time around, in order to have all of our systems, all of our web front ends accessible on zero tier, we had to do a lot of rearranging kind of at the last minute for our infrastructure. But that said, my goal for however we deployed it was to make it so at the click of a button, it deployed all the things. And by all the things, I mean Elasticsearch, RDS, our Redis cluster, our Mongo, Graylog, Collide was and all the load balancing and all the Nginx systems that had to go on behind the scenes. So we wanted it to be scalable and automated and pretty much just simple. So when we needed it to be up, click a button and it all just kind of runs itself. That said, that ended up being a little bit more complicated with zero tier in place. It changed a lot of the ways we did our load balancing. We ended up, during the event, we had a lot of hurdles simply because we were overwhelmed by the amount of participants we had. So as soon as people started pouring into the Blue Team Village, we were scaling like within the first hour or two, which was awesome. But it definitely tested our abilities like immediately. I just totally lost my train of thought. We had to rebuild a lot of the networking, like behind the scenes, that was unexpected, simply because initially we had a lot of our traffic from our enterprise systems going through a VPN tunnel, and not realizing that we were going to have that much data going through, we had to completely restructure all of that. So there was a lot of changes on the fly that I know probably none of you even noticed, but Eric and I were like scrambling within the first few hours trying to get that all squared away. But we did. The rest of the afternoon went pretty smoothly, and then day two we didn't really hit any issues in that regard. As far as I know some people were asking questions about how we deployed our Graylog, how we deployed Collide. Everything we did was basically done via auto-scaling groups in AWS and Ansible. So everything we built was sitting behind an auto-scaling group in a load balancer or an Nginx system. We scaled up when we needed to, and Ansible would build out either our Mongo or our Graylog or our Elasticsearch. Redis kind of handles itself on the back end, and so did our databases. But other than that, everything was built via Ansible. Collide was the same way. We had to scale Collide a little bit simply because people were shoving so many queries through it that it would come to a screeching halt. So we did have to respond to that a few times. Collide was built via Ansible too. They make it really easy to deploy, actually. It's just a MySQL and Redis backend. Pop the Collide binary on top of it, start the service up, and there it is. But the other cool thing we were able to do was the query packs and custom queries preloaded into Collide, so you guys could kind of hop around without not knowing how to use it in the first place. If you'd never used Collide before, you could go on there, you could see all of the preloaded queries for Windows, for Linux, for Mac, and run through those. So there were a bunch of queries that we pre-baked and rolled in, and we actually scripted that and threw it in the Recon InfoSec GitHub. So you can you can pull down that GitHub repo, and it will allow you to import basically any Collide query packs. There's a bunch of pre-baked ones out there that other people provide, but you can import any Collide query packs with just a really simple Ansible playbook, and then they're available in the Collide front end to run against all of your systems, and they end up showing up as scheduled queries that'll run against all of the appropriate systems. The scoreboard was kind of on a separate stack from our OpenSOC stack. Initially, we had it running in a Docker container on our NAS, so we restructured that for DEFCON as well. So that was another big change that we had. Did not anticipate, like we said, we did not anticipate having the number of participants that we had. So right off the bat, we ended up having to scale the scoreboard like crazy to support all of you guys playing, which was awesome. It was a good problem to have. But I know we all had our frustrations with the scoreboard throughout the event, but it's just a PHP app with a SQLite backend. So there was a lot of a learning curve for me there. What else did we have? Eric, did you want to talk about the enterprise? Oh yeah, Moloch.
Yeah. So Moloch was Moloch is a pretty significant addition to the tool sets that we have in OpenSOC. Especially if any of you have been through SANS Forensics 572, Moloch's pretty heavily focused in there because, I mean, it's a phenomenal network forensics tool. I mean, it takes, full packet capture with the power of Elasticsearch and the ability to just sit there and just sift through packets all day long, but also to run, statistics and analysis on metadata. The challenge with Moloch is, well, I should say the challenge with Moloch in OpenSOC is that we were running Moloch in a split configuration. We had the server up at AWS, and we had the sensor down in our Nuke cluster, which, I guess to elaborate, our range was a hybrid configuration. We had the entire corporate environment that was being attacked was on our 4 Nuke cluster of our 4 Skull Canyon nukes. That was actually at Con, that was at the Blue Team Village, and it had a site-to-site VPN tunnel up to the VPC up in Amazon, where all of the hunt systems were that you guys were using, Graylog, Collide, and all that. So we had Moloch server sitting up at AWS and the Moloch sensor sitting down at in our cluster at Con. Well, we learned really quickly that Moloch needs a little bit more link quality, right? Lower latency, more of a reliable link to its server to reliably push data. Go figure. And it worked, but as many of you saw, it was a bit spotty. At some points, you weren't able to pull down PCAPs. And the reason for that is when you're running queries against the server, right? You're communicating with the system up at AWS. Well, when you run a query and then you dive into the session to look at the traffic, the PCAPs are actually only on the sensor. They're not at the server level. So when you make the query, the server now reaches down to the sensor to retrieve that section of the PCAP that you need. So imagine the bidirectional traffic that's taking place there. I mean, it's going up to the cloud, back down to the sensor, back up to the cloud, and then to you. All of that on the DEFCON network over 0 tier and IPsec, and it was less than perfect. And I think it's perfectly understandable why. So we are looking at re-architecting that. We're going to make it a little bit more resilient and not so dependent upon the links. So, but otherwise, I mean, Moloch's a fantastic tool. We love it to pieces. It's just OpenSOC poses its own unique challenges with some of these tools.
Yeah, and I think go ahead, Aaron.
I was just going to say, I don't think the Moloch developers were expecting 300 some odd people to be pounding on a sensor trying to pull PCAPs at the same time. So yeah. I can't fault the tool. I really can't. It performed admirably.
You bet.
Yeah, from an architecture point of view, it was one of the toughest ones. But also, it also changed the way the course that we took with a couple things as well, because all of a sudden we had to find a way to work around it. And everyone, I don't know, I think as watching as a group, as we got to watch you all work through some of these challenges, things that were geared towards network traffic, but you were able to still find the answers, I think is a huge testament to the wealth of tools we were using. So nice job. Credit to everyone who participated and was able to pivot when we threw a hurdle in your way and you were able to get around it. It worked out really well.
And to that point, Matt, I'm glad you brought that up, because one thing that I'm not sure that even all of our participants know is that OpenSOC is 100% caveat, almost 100% live fire. I say almost because there are a couple challenges where we go ahead and give you a pre-baked memory image. But everything else that you're seeing in Graylog and Collide and all those other systems, that's all happening in real time. So as most of you know, computers don't always work, right? So we encounter hurdles, we encounter challenges, and as Matt said, it's infinitely valuable. We had all of you guys in a Slack channel, and you could tell us whenever you were looking for something and it couldn't be found, or we could go back and we could rerun something if we needed to. But we chose to do it this way because there are similar challenges out there where it's all canned traffic, and that's easier from an organizer perspective. That's a lot easier because I know what's in the pre-canned traffic, so there's not going to be any issues. But it's a little bit less of a high fidelity training environment when you can't query something because that system's not there anymore. This was all generated and recorded years ago. So we had to go with live fire so that you could actually run these tools and hunt for the artifacts. But good stuff.
Hey, I mean, if you want a realistic SOC experience, then something has to break halfway through, because that's the only way it works. Hey, really quick for everyone watching, I'm actually going to bring up a really quick browser window, and we've tweeted about this, and we're definitely going to put these links out there. But I just want to bring a few things to light here for anyone who may have heard Eric and Whitney walk through those different stacks and talk about those tools. If your first question from that is, wow, I want to start to play around with those as well, I wanted to bring up some of those web pages. Everything we talked about is very, very public facing. There's obviously no tools, no proprietary aspect to it or anything that you can't get access to in practice. So we've got the Collide page up. It's really straightforward, collide.com. I want to make a note that if you want to get some experience with Collide, they do have the ability to just sign up and test out systems. One thing that we'll note is that the open source Collide is a little bit different from the in-browser Collide. So be prepared for a little bit of a different view, but I don't want you to walk away upset about Collide versions. I want you to get familiarity with using OS Query, and that is what Collide is going to be for. We also talked about Graylog. That's really straightforward, graylog.org. This is one of the most resourceful teams. For anyone who didn't get a chance to, actually right next to us at BTV was the Graylog table. And it was cool because they were there answering questions. And literally we had some attendees who were playing OpenSOC. They would have an issue in Graylog, stand up, go and talk to the guy who builds it and maintains it and run through the issue with him, and he would help them fix it. So that just speaks again to the awesomeness of the Blue Team Village. What's up? as well was a product that, or sorry, not product, but a tool that we had implemented. This one, I saw a lot of attendees actually let slide. So we're going to make sure that we get some more WASA features in the future, because this is a pretty slick insight into a lot of your endpoint tools. So watch out. Easter egg for anyone who's watching and comes to a future OpenSOC, you may or may not see some more WASA reliance. And then last but not least, Moloch as well. These are our 4 primary tools. Whitney talked about all kinds of architecture and backends, but if you want to get some of the exposure to the tools that we saw, take a look at these first and start to get some experience with them. Whitney, correct me if I'm wrong, I think most all of these can be propped up in a Docker container or can be easily, we can set them up pretty quickly. It can be automated in some way, shape, or form. I mean, there's no reason you can't start practicing with this stuff at home.
Yeah, most of them can be thrown up into Docker, and the other cool thing was a lot of them have Ansible playbooks pre-baked and ready for them as well, or even AWS AMIs that you can roll out that are already put together. So there's a bunch of ways to do it, and they're super easy to get stood up.
Nice. I want to give a shout out to OpenSense as well, just in case anyone's curious as to insight into the firewall we were running. And then, of course, we have to talk about, Whitney did mention the query packs that we've got for Collide. So I've got a little link here into Recon InfoSec's GitHub page. Again, we'll throw this on Twitter. Don't try and write it down right now. Just be aware that if you wanted to get exposure to kind of the query packs that we were using at OpenSOC, they're there, they're available for you to use. And last but not least, the final webpage I've got here, little Easter egg for OpenSOC attendees watching. I've actually got a Moloch instance that's running out there in a private virtual server. If you'd like to get access to this, to mess around and play with Moloch, which is basically just catching the hum of the internet, shoot me a link or shoot Eric a link or anyone else in the team a link. Let me know you'd like to get access and I'll throw an account your way. That way you've got the ability to continue to play with it. You can start to work with Moloch, see how the tools work, and get some familiarity and hopefully see a different way to analyze network traffic.
Hey, I got an idea, Matt.
We ought to, for those watching.
We ought to take the PCAP from the DEFCON CTF and load it up in there.
We should do that. Tell you what, maybe we will. So if you want to mess around with that traffic too, give us a holler. Now, Eric, I got to give a shout out. We completely not forgot, but saved one of the best parts for this moment in our webcast right here. Team 604. How about it? Well done. Good job. Winners of this year's OpenSOC. So Team 604, congrats. You guys answered all of the questions. We're going to get to the scoreboard in just a moment, but I want to share one other thing. Eric, you talked about walking through the IoT village and watching people play OpenSOC. I'm talking about folks broadcasting OpenSOC on the big screen, on the big wall. So thank you to you all who participated and, decided that the only way to look at Graylog was on a 10-foot projector. Because quite frankly, there's no better sight than walking through that. So again, we talked about our infrastructure. I think Megan's going to take a chance now and talk to us a little bit about the scoreboard. There's a reason we're keeping the scoreboard as kind of like a separate thing to discuss. Number one, if you attended, you already know, so we're going to leave it at that. Number two, we've actually got, we've put a lot of thought into that because maintaining that score is just as important as maintaining the stack behind it. So I think we're going to talk a little bit about what the future of scoring looks like at OpenSOC, maybe, possibly, we'll see. But otherwise, I'm going to take off the screen share. Thanks to David Walters for throwing us up on the big wall there. But Megan, over to you.
Yeah, so we just wanted to kind of elaborate more on the scoreboard. As Whitney discussed, there were some stability issues due to how the scoreboard was built and also the unexpected flood of participants. So that was definitely a lesson learned for us there, and we took a lot, walked away with a lot of things we could improve on from that aspect. So one of the things we're going to be looking at potentially a different scoreboard with features that were requested in feedback forms that could make the scoreboard experience more delightful than what you may have encountered at Blue Team Village. So we're going to definitely be working on that. We've gathered all the points people made in their feedback forms related to the scoreboard so that whatever scoreboard we choose, we can make sure it covers as many of those suggestions as possible. The other thing that came up on a couple of occasions when talking with people about how we could improve is our scoring. Is a lot of people notice that all the questions were valued the same, and there was a request that there kind of be a mix in there where points do represent the difficulty. And we're definitely going to, for future events, be evaluating the questions and kind of bringing that more gamified aspect of it in, where the harder it gets, the more points you get, because it's kind of the standard. And we also want people who are making it further in the game feel like they're achieving more, because it does get more difficult as you go in. So it only makes sense that you're earning more for getting further in. So for anyone who submitted feedback about the scoreboard, whether it be the stability or the feature set or the scoring mechanisms, we are definitely taking what people said to heart and working really hard on finding a solution that will work well for participants, and are working on the rescoring of all our questions so that the points represent difficulty and present a more realistic challenge.
And to that note, on top, I'm going to piggyback off what you just said right there, Megan. One thing I wanted to mention earlier, to everyone who filled out the feedback forms, as you know, at the end of OpenSOC, thank you so much for contributing. And we noticed some folks have been active in the Slack over the past couple of days. Thank you for continuing to provide us that, because it just gives us more and more stuff to work with and think about when we plan in future events. And you know what? It's easy to prop up very single instances of all these tools, run them, run queries, make them work, and then be like, yeah, this is good. But you all got to actually experience it and sit there and work through them. So please, please, please keep that feedback coming. I think I'm going to ask Aaron to come off mute, because we're going to have a little discussion about one of our scenarios that we wrote. So
well,
I need to start off.
Yeah.
We need to start off, Aaron, by just saying, like, hats off to everyone who came out on day one, because y'all were flying through scenarios and we're tearing things apart to the point where Aaron and I were like, we might need to go write a couple scenarios on the fly.
and that's not to say we had a lot of scenarios. So we've done this through a lot of B-sides events, and obviously we were expecting a higher caliber folks coming into DEF CON. So we absolutely braced for that. But even so, like as we're at the end of day one, we're kind of looking at the challenges. We're like, wow, there's what we were expecting, and then there was what was happening. It was like, oh my God, the sheer number of people and the talent and the it speaks volumes to me that someone would come to an event the caliber of DEF CON and look at all of the things that are going on. And I fully anticipated people coming and checking us out and spending a few hours playing, or even a day playing. But the fact that people just devoted their DEF CON experience to being here and working on this was something that, it's flattering. And the numbers that we saw was incredible. So I know at the end of day one, we're all, just from, as Whitney's talking about, we're scaling everything up. We're trying to get the scoreboard smoothed out. We're looking at, and obviously, trying to get people excited and help people. Josh is out there working the crowd and helping folks who've never used these tools before. So we're all just like, ugh. But at the same time, we're looking at this and we're saying, you know what, we need more, and we need something that's really fun and a unique challenge. And that's where Matt and I were like, we got this. Like, we're gonna go have a blast with it.
So let's clarify something really quick, just for those of you who attended and those of you who worked your way through all the scenarios. You did not see everything. There is more that we did not get a chance to uncover yet. There are plenty of scenarios out there. But I will say, Aaron and I got hit with a little bit of inspiration, and we were like, all right, DEF CON, let's go. We're gonna turn it up just a little bit right now. Yeah. And fair enough. So I don't know about you all, but when I write scenarios, I like to go to the Beijing No. 9 noodle bar over at Caesars.
And this was not something I had done before, but now I get it. Now we're on the same page.
Yes, and that's where we ended up. So as a result of everyone who was doing an awesome job competing, we actually went and we kind of tweaked with a couple things and a couple mechanisms, and we decided to put a really quick DEF CON-centric scenario together, which allowed us to capture just the speed with which everyone was moving through stuff. The scenario was a lot of fun. So we pick up on some very typical, and I can't reveal too much because this scenario may or may not appear in the future, but for those of you who participated, think of the work from home more like work from home scenario, which I think I'm going to get a job as writing, as titling scenarios at some point, because I had so much fun putting that title together. But in developing this, we brought in a couple really, really low ball attacker techniques, straight up remote connectivity using help desk software. And it kind of goes downhill from there because all of a sudden an attacker who's using like this super low-key software brings in all these elite skills. So for anyone who went through the scenario and was wondering why our malware was named noodles and dumplings, you now know that is actually what Aaron and I were eating as we were putting
and we were at this bar just watching all of this deliciousness be made, and Matt was ordering things. It was fantastic.
So we were having fun with that, but there's a couple Easter eggs buried inside that scenario that I know we wanted to bring up. So there's little pieces of malware that get dropped. There's a couple things that take place, but then we had the brilliant idea. And again, this speaks not to the maliciousness or deviousness with which Aaron and I think, but actually to the progression and amazing skills that the attendees have. I had to make
Why
sure I
not
worded that
both?
correctly. It could potentially be both.
Okay.
We then decided to take an evidence source away. And we're not going to say which one necessarily. Some of you picked up on that as you went through it. But we then decided to take away one of those tools that we've been relying on, because we wanted to change the game a little bit, and we wanted to be like, okay,
Matt, be sure to elaborate that by take away, you did so using a tactic that an adversary really could. So it wasn't like we just said, okay, you can no longer use this tool.
Oh, yeah.
You pulled a very realistic scenario, a tactic that an adversary could use if they were to land on the box and see a blue team binary. They could.
Oh, yeah. For sure. No, and that's the important part. So there is no question that all of a sudden your firewall off from Greylog or something like that. What we did is we took the system that was impacted and we rocked in with the ability to basically stop event logging, which for all intents and purposes takes Greylog out of the scenario. Everyone, we did this for a couple of reasons. Number one, there are other tools that we can use. So we wanted to not force, but make sure you got exposure with those, because if I take away Greylog, let's rephrase that. If I take away Sysmon, then we've got to start to dig a little bit deeper into the evidence, which is where Collide comes in. Collide, being awesome in its ability to give you real-time queries, was super cool because we could do things on the system and you all could use Collide to get that real-time insight. So we came up with that idea of, why don't we take event logs out of it? So we brought in an event log modification tool, which without revealing too much, I can say I saw used in the wild within the past 72 hours by an attacker. And we took away that particular source of evidence. But by taking that away, it allowed us to actually move through the scenario in a different way. So Aaron, I don't know if you want to come back in, but I think when we took that away, we then started to have a lot of fun because we came up with some really unique download methods. Again, all real world. And you know what, Eric, I feel like maybe we should say that because you did mention the range live. We don't make our own malware or manufacture anything that would be improbable or impossible out in the real world.
Right. One of the criteria by which our scenarios must be developed is every red team inject, every attack that's carried out has to be real world, has to be realistic. This needs to be something that could happen on any network anywhere. We're not side loading it using the hypervisor, shared folder module, because the last thing we'd want to do is frustrate the blue team to the point of, but this isn't even real. So I'm not gonna spend a bunch of energy trying to find this. So all the tactics that these guys are using, we vet them to really question okay, but is that realistic? It's bad, but how would this happen in the real world? And we make sure that it passes the sniff test there.
Well, for me, it was interesting too, since I have familiarity with the attack tools, but not so much the forensic footprint of what it looks like. But it was really fun to kind of bounce back and forth with Matt and see okay, we could do this, and obviously cut off this data source, but now how would they know that? It's actually, if I were looking at this from Blue Team perspective, there's evidence of that. So you can actually go back and see that this is what happened. Before, all right, things went silent, but I know exactly why. And because we gave them a whole breadth of tools, you still have the ability to go in and see what happened even after the fact. So it was a really fun scenario.
And you're too right on that point, because if I could count the number of times, because I'm a big fan of Sysmon, I'm a big fan of Greylog, obviously. But if I could count the number of times someone asked me, but what happens if an attacker gets on the box and kills Sysmon? Okay, that could absolutely happen. But they didn't just magically appear on the box. So I have all the great wealth of data that Sysmon can provide me all the way up until the point that the attacker killed it. So the real kicker is know what that looks like, know what all the telltale signs are that would lead up to an event like that, but then also know when it's time to switch gears and turn to another tool now.
Yeah, no, the visibility was key, and having Collide, having the insight to dig into those was it made it a lot of fun. To Aaron's point, it allowed us to craft a scenario that was able to keep up with the pace through which our attendees were moving through the questions. So again, thank you to everyone who did an awesome job in progressing through them. You kept us on our toes. You gave us a chance to develop something on the fly, total DEFCON fashion, right? We're gonna do this tonight, and we went through it, and it was really cool. But let me just reiterate here. We did not go through every scenario. So if you completed the scoreboard, next time you see us, there may be some new stuff. So come
there
back.
Will be.
Yeah, there are definitely going to be new things, without a doubt. B, we've talked about how we're going to change some of the scoring, how some of the things are going to change in difficulty. So, you may see the same scenario, but different angles. So don't think that you've got all the answers there. But then also, as attackers' techniques change, as new things come about and whatnot, we're also going to work, because this is as much an exercise for all of us to organize it and to design it as it is for you all to play it as well. So as new techniques come about, as new C2 methodologies, think every step of MITRE's attack matrix, think every step of the kill chain. As those steps improve, as our attackers improve, we're going to work to bring that to you as well. So that way, the next time you play, you may not be in an environment that's getting hit with, some sort of nation state level exploit on every single day. So we want to give you the experience to have that. So watch out for future challenges and at future events, because you're likely going to see a lot of the same techniques. I'm going to stop talking for a moment and hand over to Whitney. Whitney, I think you had something you wanted to bring up with us really quick.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that all of the stack that we built was completely done with infrastructure as code. So before we even got to any of the Ansible stuff, everything was built out with a CloudFormation stack. So literally the entire network, the whole environment, all of it. So the cool part was, while we were fixing a bunch of stuff on our end and scaling and adjusting as needed to fit the DEFCON event and that number of players and that scale, while we were doing all this, we were able to go back in and basically make all those fixes on the fly. So the next time we spin this up at the next event, we're already, 75% of the way there to being ready for the next one and prepared for what we weren't prepared for this time, or what we weren't expecting at all this time. So that was a really cool part. It was definitely a learning experience and a lot of lessons learned, and it was really great to be able to just make those fixes as needed and be ready for the next event.
Hey, one thing I wanted to show off, because not everybody attended the closing ceremony at the Blue Team Village, but the winners, the winning team for OpenSOC at the Blue Team Village was given the first ever Blue Team Village coin, and I wanted to show that off because I think it's actually pretty cool. It's a really unique coin design that these guys put forward, and now it's fairly exclusive, because I think only the speakers at the Blue Team Village and the winners of OpenSOC were given those this year. So big thanks to the Blue Team Village for having those made.
For sure.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know, I'm kind of feeling around to thank yous with all this Blue Team Village love, but thanks to everyone who attended. I know we've turned this into really just the lessons learned that we've got, but we wouldn't be out there if y'all didn't participate. So thank you so much for coming out. To Aaron's point earlier, you had 3-4 days in Vegas. You decided to spend a large majority of that time with us, or sitting right outside the Blue Team Village door, because they only opened at certain times. By the way, to those of you who got married at the Flamingo on Saturday, what is wrong? Seriously, that's the day you choose to get married. I doubt they're going to be watching, but in any event, come on, of all times. But thanks to everyone who stayed out. Thanks to all the different sponsors, and we had the folks that gave us awesome swag, all the tools that we were able to use. We had the very, very fortunate, I mentioned Greylog already, but we had the very fortunate opportunity to be in touch with a lot of the backers for the tools, the folks at Collide, the folks at Moloch, the folks at Waza. So thank you to all of them for allowing us to really demo the strength of your tools, because you make these amazing things. We use them to find evil and give bad guys headaches. So thanks for letting us do that. And hats off again to those of you who placed in the top tier of the scoreboard. For those of you who wished you were higher in the scoreboard, that for me is the reason for you to come back and see us again and keep working through, keep hunting, keep finding evil. Eric, what else you got for us?
Hey, I guess the last thing I've got I wanted to cover. A lot of folks asked us, what are we doing to plan for next year? How do we plan to improve OpenSOC? And I want to first start by telling you what we did to prepare for DEF CON. And to be completely honest with you, it was a very much, and Whitney will laugh about this. It was kind of a last minute thing. When I say last minute, I mean like we might have put a week or two of specialized, prep into it, because OpenSOC's been around for a while, but we spent a couple weeks. Okay, let's make it ready for DEF CON. That was nowhere near enough to prepare for the size of the turnout that we had. No. So just to put it into perspective, we've already started re-architecting OpenSOC for next year's DEF CON. So if that kind of shines some light on how big it's going and how much it's going to change, just magnitudes. It's going to be, now at its core, it's going to be the same game. So those of you that played at DC26, you'll be very comfortable, very familiar in it next year. So I'm not saying it's all going to be different. I'm just saying that we're coming with it next time. A bigger environment, a more robust environment, a bulletproof network. We're going to have a lot more time to test it and make sure that it's rock solid, but also plan to see a much larger network to hunt through.
Yeah, let me add to that we've already started to replan a lot of the scenarios as well. I spoke just a moment ago about the techniques that you'll see, but with regards to the size of scenarios, you're going to see that grow. You're going to see everything grow with respect to the network, because, hey, we've got a little corporate network running. We're going to take advantage of it. We're going to do exactly what attackers do. So, just get ready and just be prepared for our next event. Whitney, any final last remarks for us?
Nothing other than I hope that we get the amount of participants next year that'll send us to the ground within the first hour, like it did this time. It was an awesome response, like I said earlier, and it really pushed us to our limits. So I enjoyed it, and next year I think it's going to be even more awesome, and we will definitely be more prepared, and it's gonna be fun.
Awesome. Aaron?
Yeah, I'll echo that, and especially I think as we kind of go through, one of the challenges that we saw was folks kind of stepping into this for the first time, but also people who do this all day, every day. And so wanting to see now how we can both lift up those that are just starting out, while at the same time providing a fun challenge, kind of like some of the stuff that Matt and I were working on. Some of those really interesting tweaks that are still very real world, but are still a fun and unique challenge to keep people coming back. I think we're going to kind of keep expanding that breadth as we move on. And it's in the scope of what we're talking about now, it's really easy to say, like, yeah, next year DEF CON, we're going to be working on this throughout. So you'll see us at different B-Sides events and other conferences. And we'll kind of keep that up, but yeah, we're definitely going to be expanding a lot more. I think to Whitney's point, I know we're going to be prepared for a rush next year, and we're absolutely looking forward to it.
Awesome. And then, last but not least, if you have questions about where OpenSOC is going to be next, or how you could potentially see us again at another event, Megan, why don't you take us home and let us know what the next foreseeable future looks like?
Yeah, so there's a lot of mention of DEFCON26 and next year on this event, but almost next month or month after next, we'll be at Texas Cyber Summit in San Antonio. So if you've been hearing all about this and you're in the Texas area, definitely you can come check us out. We're going to try our website, opensoc.io. We'll keep that calendar updated as we best we can. And so if you look at that calendar, that will list our public events and where we're going to be. And then if you want to bring us to your event, one thing that we had not experienced before, before the publicity, so to say, that came along with DEFCON was the flood of people asking us to come to different events. We love doing this. We love running the event. You can email info@reconinfosec.com or fill out the form on the OpenSOC.io website if you want to talk with us about bringing it to our event.
Outstanding.
Awesome. Thank you, Megan. All right. So everyone, I think that is going to wrap us up for the night. Thank you again to all of our attendees who came out. You know, you gave us the reason to be out here and talk about this. So we're super happy to be able to give this wrap up. You know, you will most likely see us around other events, as Megan mentioned. One final thing I want to mention or bring up is if there's anything that we talked about during this webcast, during this DEFCON debrief, if you will, that you have an additional question on, a link that we didn't show, something, you know, an automation technique or an attacker technique or something that we didn't get a chance to elaborate on further, you've got our contact. We're on Twitter. We've got a Slack. Please let us know, you know, any additional questions you may have, because we're more than happy to continue to walk through those. We're all here to find evil together. With that, Eric, why don't you take us home and we will call it a night.
Yeah, you bet. I'll just wrap it up by saying, hey, I really appreciate everybody that's on this OpenSOC team and everybody that's played through this game at DEFCON and all the events prior. The funny thing is that we're all the same. We're just DFIR nerds that wanted to come together and make an awesome platform that we could take around and, you know, let other DFIR nerds play on. So it's just awesome to be part of the community, and we're glad that you guys have kind of made a home for us. So on that, we'll cut it loose.
Outstanding. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
I want everything in the cloud, Aaron.
Put it in the cloud.
How long have you been recording us?
Put it in the cloud. Oh, we are recording.
Just now.
Oh, okay, cool.
Ah.
Wait, did you capture me saying put it in the cloud? That can't go public.